What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another car review. This is of course the 2018 Mini Cooper SD Clubman. Huge thanks to Mini for providing me with this awesome new Clubman to review for you guys today. So about the Clubman, well, I'm over here in the United Kingdom actually reviewing this car here. Mini kindly let me drive it all over the UK. I've put about 800 miles on it so far, and it's really cool to drive, especially over here. You know, it's nice having a smaller vehicle, you know, trying to get used to driving on the other side of the road and all that type of stuff. But anyway, getting back to the Mini here, they picked the perfect color for me too. British racing green, these dark green colors I especially love on any car, but especially on the Mini. It just fits so well as being such a classic color. And I still love the modern retro look that Mini does on all their vehicles, and especially here on the Coopers and the Clubman here with those round headlamps there in the front. I love the LED rings you have on them too, which really stand out nicely. I still love the little hood scoop you have there, and the new Mini badge is also pretty cool in person too. That's something they changed here in the past year. And otherwise, I just love the black accents you have on this one with the black wheels and the the black grille and everything. It just really sets it off nicely with a little bit of the black paint, a little bit of the chrome trim also you have around the vehicle, and it just looks really good even in this four-door configuration. A little less traditional than regular Minis in the past, but I think it really still fits and still is very true to the original Mini styling. I also especially love the back of the Clubmans, how you have the dual little doors. They even have dual little windshield wipers, or I guess windscreen wipers there in the back for the rear window, which is really cool. And nice little chrome exhaust tips to set it off, and just a really cool looking little vehicle. Although it is a little bit longer here, being four doors and being the Clubman, that stretches that a little bit more as well. But I think it makes it have a lot more practicality while still also being very compact still. Whereas for the interior of the Mini Cooper S Clubman, well, of course, I'm on the right-hand side of the vehicle, which is a big change for those of us here in the States. But I really love this Mini interior. It's just so nice, though. They've really improved it, made it so unique and different. A lot of the other vehicles in this segment and stuff are a little more ho-hum, way less unique. I think the Mini is one of the most unique and, greatest uses of creativity on an interior that I think I've ever seen. So anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, you have these really cool cloth seats here in the Cooper S Clubman. The way this one is configured, you can of course get nice leather and all that type of stuff, but this one has like a vinyl material in the middle here, and then on the sides you have the cloth. But I really like the cloth. It's a really nice feeling cloth, very smooth and just feels great. But you have really nicely bolstered seats too that they don't have super aggressive bolstering or anything. I think again you can get a more aggressive seat if you'd like, but these seats still have really great torso support, really great thigh support, and overall they're actually really comfortable seats too. I've put several hundred miles on these seats, and they're very comfortable and great for road trips and things like that too. Next to the steering wheel here in the Cooper SD Clubman, so this one has the optional John Cooper Works steering wheel. It's not a John Cooper Works version, just the steering wheel, but it is a really sweet steering wheel. It has an awesome 9 3 grip, nice huge 10 2 notches. I think some of the largest 10 2 notches I've ever seen, honestly, and just a really thick beefy wheel, nicely leather wrapped with the red stitching. Looks really cool. You have paddle shifters here, which are pretty large also, again thanks to being the John Cooper Works version. And then you have a few basic buttons here, just very contained, with just the left hand side for cruise control, the right hand side there for your audio controls and things like that, which show you what's going on in your heads up display, which is a really nice heads up display. In some other vehicles, you have these little screens, but they look a little weird in some other vehicles, whereas in this it's tinted, so it's a clear distinction between the heads up display and the windshield, and it doesn't seem like it's a pair of eyeglasses or anything. It's just a really nice high definition color display and a really nice little heads up display. Again, in a vehicle of this class, most don't have something that feature packed, if at all, and so a really nicely done heads up display. Coming over to the rest of the gauges here though, very small little pod you have right in front of the steering wheel here, and it's really compact, and I love it though. You have your speedometer, tachometer there on the left hand side, and then your little fuel gauge with the little ticks, and that's it. You have a little color display too, which will show your basic trip information, just a few things in there, but nice to have that. And again, if you've ever been in any other kind of Mini or even BMW, that type of stuff would be fairly familiar. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you have right up top, I do miss they don't put the speedometer here in the center center anymore. I do miss that. I love that in my R56 Mini. Those of you that remember, I had an R56 Mini Cooper S for about 6 months, and that was one of my favorite things about it. And so now you have these infotainment screens in here, which is very similar to the BMW iDrive system, but it's a nice large screen, and thankfully, although you do have a controller wheel, it is touchscreen, so you can still use touch, which is great, especially considering this has Apple CarPlay in it as well as standard. At least here in the UK, that's a standard feature to have CarPlay, which is really nice to have. And so again, that combined with it being touch means that that's all very natural, and you can still use that like your smartphone. Otherwise, it's your typical, like BMW iDrive menu setup. So, you have the split screen ability, which is nice to have. Otherwise, though, it's still a little overly complicated for my personal taste as far as the menus and things go. It takes a few extra clicks or taps to get to what you want to do. And some other vehicles, it's a little more straightforward than it is in here. But it's one of those things, if you own one of these, you learn it over time. I'm sure, it's fairly easy to learn. You do also have these shortcut number buttons that I believe you can have programmed to just about anything in here. And so that'll also make it easier. Again, if you live with one of these and you actually own one, all that stuff I think will get a lot more easy to use over time. And so, a nice screen overall, the very high resolution still. Coming down, you have your auto climate controls here in the Cooper SD Clubman. And it's really cool. So you have the little, temperature display within the knobs there, which is, I think, a great use of space. And just the 3 large knobs nicely rubberized here on the outside and just feel really solid. Everything in here, of course, since these minis aren't super cheap, they're a little more pricey than some of the competition, but you certainly feel that quality here on the interior, and you can see where the money is spent, where everything actually feels, just as nice as a BMW, and so it's really a great, to have that additional little bit of luxury if you want that in a small vehicle like this. Then you have a row, for your heated seats and that type of stuff, and then these toggle switches, which I absolutely love, especially the start-stop toggle is so cool to have that there, and then the other toggle switches are cool. And they actually go up and down, unlike stuff like the Mustang where it only goes one direction. These actually are functional in both directions, and a really cool little set of toggle switches there. And then right beneath that, you'll have your USB jack and power outlet as well. Coming down, you'll see your shifter. This one is an automatic, so it has the automatic shifter, and it's a similar type of layout to a BMW and their new shifters, although this one's a little bit longer and a little sportier looking. But, a nice shifter nonetheless, and then you have just the little iDrive controller down here, and, it's got a little touch thing on the top and a few shortcut buttons, which is nice to have. As far as storage space in the Clubman, that is one of its strong suits. Again, you have a little bit more space here, but I think all the Minis are pretty practical. So first off, in the doors here, you have a large door pocket, which has 2 bottle holders in it and another little slot as well. And even like the window switches are nice and actually feel metal and heavy. So again, just lots of nice high quality stuff. I also love the Harman Kardon speakers you have here in the A-pillar and in the doors. Nice large speakers, and really, this Harman Kardon system sounds really good once you turn it up. Coming over to the center, you have 2 cup holders here right in front of the shifter, and then you have the center armrest, which actually is nice and softly padded, but the material does feel a little cheap compared to some of the other materials in here, although there still are a decent amount of hard plastics, on the center and by the door area and stuff, but it's, again, forgivable for a vehicle in this class and segment. Anyway, you open up this center armrest in the top part, you have a wireless charging pad, which is a nice inclusion, and then you have in the bottom part a pretty decently sized cubby. You can fit, sunglasses in a large sunglass case, for example. You also will find another USB jack in there, and I also like the little plaid background you have there for the bottom of that. You'll also find that in this little storage space underneath the front USB jack as well, and so a nice little bit of space there. Not super huge, but again, great for laying down a phone or something in there. And so overall, a really good amount of storage space is up front here to put things. Backseat space in the 4-door Clubman here is actually pretty spacious and comfortable. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I usually have about 2 to 3 inches of leg room to spare, and I actually have a couple inches of headroom too, so really good amount of space back there. You'll also find in the doors a bottle holder in each of the doors. When you look forward, you see air vents and a power outlet, and there's even a fold down center armrest there, which has 2 cup holders built into it. And so overall, it's actually a pretty comfortable, very spacious, and a really well done back seat. Trunk space here in the Clubman is also pretty good. Again, being the Clubman, it's a little longer. As you can see, I fit a full-size suitcase back there, laying it down, so it gives you a good idea for the amount of space you're working with there. Not, super deep or anything. It's about on par with other hatchbacks as far as, the load floor is pretty level with the seats, which do fold down, and it'll give you a nice, long, loading floor there if you want that. Other things though, you have little pockets both in both sides of the little rear doors that split, and I really like how they split because it means you can have only one side open if you only need to get into some stuff there on one side of it, or you can open up both sides, of course. And I really like how it kind of opens up, you know, like that. And I really like that little setup. Although you do, because you have that pillar down the middle, that does compromise your view out of the back here, having that pull right in the middle of your view. But other than that, I mean, it's not a big deal, and I really like that. It's just a little unique, you know, from every other typical hatchback. All right, so starting to go for a drive. The Minis here, the new ones at least, have this very cool key, very nice and round, but compact, still pretty small, a little chunky, but not too bad. And it says Mini there on the back. And I just really like it. It's, again, a unique key. It just fits with everything with Mini here, just unique and cool. And I really like this key. But of course, it's keyless access, even with buttons on the doors, and you know, keyless entry, push button starts. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine toggle or the start button here, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the Mini Cooper SD Clubman. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about and to take in here because, you know, I'm driving on the left-hand side of the road in a right-hand drive car, and it really throws you off. I, of course, want to focus on the car, but just a brief little aside about driving in the UK. My first time here, only my second time driving a right-hand drive car. The first time was actually in America on, you know, normal American roads, and that was only for about 30 minutes anyway. So this is definitely my first time, and it is different for sure. It just really, you would think that, you know, everything just transfers over from the other side, but it's not quite that simple, you know. So there's, you know, you have to really judge this left side, and it's a lot harder to be like, okay, you keep looking in your side view mirror, like, do I have enough space? Is it too tight, you know? And that's one thing, you know, a lot of the roads here are a lot tighter than they are in other, you know, parts, especially in America. I mean, so that's why having a smaller car like the Mini is great, but even the Mini feels a little big sometimes on some of these roads. I wish I was in something even smaller. So it's really a interesting thing, and especially whenever everyone else is going so quickly, since you're the only one that's not used to this, it definitely can be a challenge. But we're in these beautiful back roads here in the UK. I'm not super familiar with the area, but those of you that are locals might be able to identify it a little bit better. But it is just beautiful here, and a beautiful backdrop too for this vehicle. You know, Minis are very good with their handling, and it is so tight. That is the one thing I'm just like, oh man, I just wish there was a little more room. If there was another foot of width on all the roads, it would make things a lot less stressful, I think. But again, I'm just clearly not used to this type of, you know, small spaces. But there's plenty of room. You think they could, like, you know, make things a little more spacious. But anyway, it's just such a cool road, and this is a great car for it, though, because it's you know, the handling is just so good, and it's just I'm sorry, I'm like, this is even more narrow than a lot of the other roads I've been on. I've been on the motorway a lot in this vehicle so far. It's really great on the motorways. You know, it's a really nice cruiser, and the fuel economy is phenomenal as well. I've actually been getting on the highway, especially whenever I've just been cruising, but it's been kind of mixed driving, you know, some stop and go stuff, but also on the highway. Overall, my combined rating's been around 55, almost 56 mpg pretty steadily. Like every single trip I go on, it's a few hours long. It's like I'm getting 55 mpg consistently, which is great. So I mean, this is the diesel. That's what the SD stands for. S is, of course, the sporty version like any other Cooper, but the D stands for diesel. And the efficiency, I know diesel's been put through the ringer recently from, you know, just everyone with just you know, all the controversies and stuff, but the diesel is clearly the most efficient way to go about you know, getting around, at least around here. And so yeah, the fuel economy is so spectacular. I think these actually, the combined average officially BMW rates here in the UK is like 62 mpg, which is, I think, a little bit of a different test cycle, but still just really impressive. All right, now we're on a road with a little bit more space, so we can kind of go some a little bit higher speeds here. And this is where you can just tell the handling of these Minis is so good. Even though we are in the longer Clubman, and even though we are in, you know, a little bit of a larger Mini, you know, they've grown a lot over the past few years here, but it really is just, I mean, such a phenomenal handler still. I think they still only weigh around 3,200 pounds, even despite the four doors and despite being the Clubman here with a little bit of a longer length. It's still, you know, you feel that it feels nice and tight, you know, everything, there isn't any body roll, and especially, you know, you know, it's funny how European vehicles, you know, they usually focus on handling a little bit more than the muscle cars and the American stuff, and now I understand why, because there's like a million roundabouts, and you can't even stay on one road without going through multiple roundabouts just to keep going straight. So you're constantly going around these corners at speed and roundabouts and stuff. So I really appreciate the really good handling of the Mini here, and I think that really comes in handy. And I now understand why, you know, you usually around here you're going to want a vehicle that can handle corners a little bit faster. But yeah, so I mean the handling is so good. You have 18-inch wheels here, 225 wide in the Clubman SD, and it just does a really good job with its handling. I haven't pushed it a whole lot because, again, I'm still just getting used to driving around here, so I'm not really in the best position to push a vehicle and really test its limits and stuff. But these Minis are very friendly handlers. You know, it's nothing to really be scared of. Of course, it's only front-wheel drive, and again, they're just very, you know, tuned in and just really, I guess, just flat and easy to drive and just feel really good to drive. One other great advantage about this diesel, though, is the torque that you have here. So we have 190 horsepower and 266 pound-feet of torque from this 2-liter diesel turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. And so it actually gets these things up and going pretty well. It's 7.6 seconds 0 to 60, but for a diesel, I mean, that's really quick, and that's really right up there with the gasoline version of the Coopers, you know, and this one, of course, being, you know, a bit larger, the Clubman, and the, you know, 4-door one. You know, it's, I think, very impressive still as far as straight line performance. And again, to get, you know, 7.6 seconds 0 to 60, and then to remember you continue to get 55 mpg in my experience here, or, you know, even higher if you, you know, go closer to the actual manufacturer numbers. And so really impressive as far as, you know, fuel economy and still having the performance is really cool. Another thing, now we can put it into the manual mode here. We of course have the automatic in this one. Of course, you can get a manual, and manual is very popular here in the UK. Now, those of you that love the United Kingdom, oh, there's a sheep in the road. This is just where I'm at currently here in the UK. There's just sheep roaming everywhere, just wildly. Anyway, so you know, manual is very popular. I would say a large majority of the vehicles here in the UK do actually have a manual. Not only as an option, but most people seem to buy the manual, which is really cool. So those of you that if you're feeling like the manuals are getting exterminated from the United States, come over here. You have tons to pick from. But anyway, this one does have the automatic, and I'm thankful for it, although I am quite good at driving a manual. Obviously, I've been driving a manual for over 10 years. But with all the things you have to process whenever you flip and you're driving on the other side of the road and on different roads and stuff, I'm happy to have the automatic. But anyway, this automatic here has, I believe it's a ZF automatic, and you know, it's really smooth with its shifts whenever you're just driving around normally. You know, and there's a sport mode, which can, you know, make it even sportier, but I honestly haven't even found a need for the sport mode. But I put it over into the manual mode here. We can try, now, you know, being that this is the diesel, you don't have a super wide power band. You know, the red line is just over 5,000 RPMs, so you don't have a ton of, you know, room to work with the RPMs here. But we're currently just cruising here 2,000. We go down. It's really quick. For some reason, this has the autonomous braking. Even though there was a clear road in front of me, it freaked out for some reason. All these systems, regardless of where in the world you are, they all seem to still be not quite perfected. Anyway, yeah, really quick downshifts. I mean, it's still definitely a torque converter automatic. It's not as fast as the dual clutch or anything, but it is still very responsive and should be more than enough, you know, if you want to, you know, drive with the paddles and, you know, do your own shifting here. This will certainly play along and feels like it can keep up. It doesn't hinder you really or hold you back. But we have no one behind us, and I have not done an acceleration yet. So we have a nice straight piece of road, which is rare around here. So let's come to a stop, and let's go for an acceleration, shall we? There we go. So it's not mind-blowing performance, but it gets up and goes pretty quickly, and it's really got lots of passing power to this engine. Whenever you're out on the highway, it's really great, you know, because a lot of the highways, the standard speed limit is 70. So, you know, it's one of those vehicles where it'll cruise comfortably at 70 or 80 all day long without issue. It can pass and go beyond those speeds very easily. Again, thanks to that, you know, plentiful torque you have. And so it's really, it just makes it very easy to drive, and it's more than enough power for around here, at least in my experience. So when we're rolling a little bit, there's a nice little sound to it as well. But yeah, it moves really well. It actually feels slower than it's actually going. And I mean, I looked at the speedometer, I'm like, wow, we're like doing pretty impressive speeds here. So it's kind of deceptive in just how quick it actually is. And also, as far as refinement goes, you know, a lot of diesels in the past haven't been super refined, a little more noisy, and this honestly feels just as quiet as a gasoline engine, just as refined. There isn't any kind of roughness or, you know, roughness at idle or roughness when you're driving. There's none of that. It's really just well done in just about every regard. It's just really a polished diesel, and a well done job there by Mini. And of course, I mean, like I said, since a large amount of people over here have diesel engines, you know, they want to have that equality and make it, you know, just as nice as gasoline, and I think it really does. There's really no trade-offs. It's just the great benefit of the higher torque you get with the diesel here, of the better fuel economy. I can see how it makes so much sense, and I wish that, you know, more car companies were willing to try it out in the States, and more consumers in the States were willing to give it a try, because I think it's a really great solution without going to some electric component. You can just have the diesel and still have lots of great efficiency. But it's such a smooth and refined ride in these new Minis too. They've just come so far from their more bare bones roots, and especially even with the previous generation Minis, this is certainly even another step up beyond that too. But yeah, overall, you know, I think that the Cooper SD Clubman makes so much sense. Especially, it's so cool they have these diesel ones here. I didn't even know about them honestly until I came over here, and it's really the perfect combination of, you know, you have the efficiency, but you still have so much power and torque that feels very punchy, you know, feels very sporty, and is overall really well-rounded vehicle that you can get as practical or as little practicality as you want. You can have a regular Cooper S two-door, you can have, you know, the four-door Cooper S or the Clubman to get even more length there in the back. And so overall, you know, I mean, these are certainly pricey. You know, I think it depends also on where you live. They're probably a little cheaper over here because I see them everywhere, these Minis over here. They're very, very popular, and I can see why, especially if the price is a little more affordable. In the States, they can get pretty pricey, you know, easily. You know, I mean, you can take it easy on the options and do one in the low 30s, but it can also get up to, you know, closer to the mid 40s. And so once you get up into the mid 40s, you know, there's a lot of really impressive hot hatches and things in the States that you can get for, you know, equal or lesser money. But, you know, I think the Mini has a really cool combination of, again, having so many different options as far as what you want as far as body styles go, but also as far as power goes, as far as options list. You know, there are so many different options you can get on the Minis. You can make them as luxurious and decked out as you want, or you can have a bare bones one and still get one, you know, and I think even like the high 20s you can manage. And so either way, it's just, no matter how you look at it, a really good bargain. You can go, of course, go on Mini's configurator in your country and, you know, figure out exactly how much a Mini would be configured the way you want it to be configured. And that's, you know, one of the great things, like I said, it's just they're so customizable. They have such a fun community too, it seems, that really are very passionate about their Minis, and that also is really cool to, you know, be part of a community of people that also really enjoy their vehicles and to have that bond. So huge thanks once again to Mini UK and Mini in the United States for allowing me to review this Cooper SD Clubman and for providing it for me to drive around here in the UK. Let me know your thoughts on the Coopers and all of them, especially the SD here over in the UK, and your thoughts on driving in the UK, those of you that live over here. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.